Ready.
Hey, welcome to another episode of HR Nightmares, sponsored by Leath HR Group. And we're basically trying to give people realistic HR advice and really hoping to avoid HR nightmares versus like dwelling on all the HR nightmares people are dealing with. We love stories. We love inserting a little bit of humor, and we absolutely love our guests. So today, Amy Conway and myself are met by Wayne Hippo, who is the managing partner of PS Solutions. He's also a friend of mine, and we run Work Talk together, which is the HR app for connecting employees and their supervisors via mobile device. And so, super happy to have you here. We are repping the Big Ten.
Yes, we are.
Oh, are we?
Yeah.
Wait, what Big Ten are you?
Penn State.
The leader of the Big Ten.
The leader.
Wait, I don't know that we're repping. We have two representatives. So you guys are both Penn State.
But you're Indiana.
I know.
Yeah, so you're good.
Well, I thought we had three in here, but you guys
No.
I feel ganged up on now.
Yeah, we're here to have an intervention and make you go back for a master's through the Penn State World Campus. No, I think today we'd love to talk about everything from like why it's so important to hire people in the United States in the industry that you work in, and all the benefits that go along with that, not to mention just like basically jobs for Americans is nice. But are you struggling with that and keeping jobs onshore? And then also just like what kind of hires do you end up looking for? I think that, you've done some non-traditional hiring in the past, and that's really cool. And I think it's worked out well, so we want to hear maybe some stories about like what's worked out well, what's not worked out well.
Sure.
And then also he's a recovering attorney.
Yes, I am.
He's the first lawyer we've had at the table.
Yeah.
And he can take a joke.
We like the attorneys.
Yeah,
we don't
love
like
attorneys.
the situations when we have to bring them in, but
Yeah. Attorneys are fun.
we rely on them.
That's great.
Employment attorneys are fun. And you're still a mediator.
Yeah, I'm still a mediator. I still have my license. I just
Yeah.
don't practice and don't want to give it up. I do like the chance to help people from time to time. So if I get that call, it's in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So tell us about your story and how you ended up at this table here today.
Wow. 30 plus years as an employment attorney. And then when my business partner and I had a chance to create this business 13 years ago now, I jumped into it. I had a pretty strong understanding of the industry. Joe has a lot of technical background.
Software development.
Sure. And saw the opportunity, saw what could be done. And we both have a very, very strong belief that these jobs can and should be done here in the United States. And I don't want to get too preachy about this, but we're sitting here in North Carolina, where we've lost the textile industry overseas outsourcing. We've lost the furniture industry, by and large part, heading overseas. And as bad and as tragic as that's all been, the idea that software development and technology could head offshore should scare everybody. Mm-hmm. Because it so impacts our lives. It so, therefore, impacts every aspect of what we do, from our financial to our security to our medical. Why in the world would we want to give up the ability to control that? And the problem is that it's a tough solution. It's about education, it's about training, and it's about breaking down some traditional barriers that are in place to give more opportunities to people. It's not an easy solution, but it's extremely doable. I'm very proud of what we've put in place, and we've been successful now for 13 years. I tell everyone that'll listen to me, we've never, ever written a line of code offshore, and we never will. We'll close the business before we do it. Yeah, well, proud of our team, and it can be done.
Think about this, though. Like, my mom, she reads a lot of news, okay, so she fills me in on everything that's going down in the world. But I stopped over there this morning. She's like, can you believe that the United States is 22 in the world for reading and math? And what's so interesting is, like, right now, Leath HR Group is filling a ton of technical roles and, like, engineering roles for some clients all across the United States. And it's very hard to find people who have graduated even from U.S.-based schools who don't need sponsorship. And it's like, any kids going to school for engineering, whether it's like chemical engineering and like, are any like kids here going to school, because every other country is beating us out, it seems like right now. Sure. So how are you finding people here, and are you doing are you finding that you have to do sponsorships for developers?
You know, we've done sponsorships in the past. I love the opportunity for sponsorships because, you know, you're giving someone a chance to live the American dream. Those folks are trying to be here. That job's not going overseas. And to your other point, you can jump on a search and type in any city you want, Java, software developer, and it'll become very obvious that a large number of those folks who are listed as qualified are not from here. And it shows the problem. But, yeah.
But a lot of companies are doing sponsorships, and to be honest, it doesn't cost that much. It's like $12,000 or something. It's a pain in the neck.
Well, for smaller companies, it is. It is a pain in the neck. There's a lot of, and we've done it. And because of my license, I've been the guy at the
facilitating it. Yeah.
Okay.
And it is way harder than it needs to be or should be. And there's a lot of antiquated protections in place. I mean, granted, you know, we don't want to set up a system where people are being exploited by dollars. I get that. But the complexity of getting it done when folks are trying to live the dream and be part of what this country's about, frankly, it's astounding. I mean, they're not taking jobs that other people are lining up for. We need more people like this out there.
Yeah, and they're getting educated here, and they're going to take that knowledge somewhere else.
Yeah, unless we find a way to get them in the system. Absolutely.
So
the other nice thing, Lisa, to change it up a little bit, is it is a profession where people can self-teach. One of the stories that I like to talk about is there's such a bias still, and it comes oftentimes through HR, of creating that job description that says, you know, 4-year college required. You know, we've literally hired people who taught themselves based on the internet, based on banging away at keys in the basement, reading some books. People can get extremely talented and develop those talents by themselves. So I think a real key in this is to everyone needs to self-examine the process that they're going through as companies to find out, you know, are we doing this right? Yes, this is the way we hire other positions, but should we be doing it this way for these software positions?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting just in general, a conversation, and I've been doing it a lot. We write a lot of job descriptions with our fractional clients and just other clients that we work with, and there's been a lot of roles where I've gone through job descriptions and said, like, well, explain to me why someone would need a 4-year degree here. Because this is a job that feels like you learn by actually doing the job and having a couple other jobs before it. And the other jobs before it don't require the 4-year degree. So why would we put it on this one, right? So it's just really challenging that, because I think it's just been a like automatic. At a certain job level, you just kind of like put it in there. And I think we have to realize when you put that out on a job posting, it discourages especially minorities and women from applying. If they don't hit all of those check marks on a job description, women and minorities will not apply. Men historically will apply a little bit more, but it can be really discouraging. So I think it's something companies need to evaluate.
They need to evaluate all the requirements for jobs, because to be honest, like, and I think we might have done an episode or we wrote something up about this, but even the years of experience requirement is ridiculous in most cases.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, this is like a coordinator role or like a technician role that if you spent 6 weeks doing job shadowing or shoulder surfing, you could do the role. So I think just we need to examine, like, especially if we're complaining that we can't find people or people don't want to work. No, people want to work, but your requirements are ridiculous for the job that they're doing and probably for the price you're going to pay. So
sure, we've seen that too. Another problem with the job descriptions are that sometimes there's a disconnect between HR and the actual manager that's going to be working for this person. We were involved with a major client in Pittsburgh 5-6 years ago, where we kept producing candidates based on the job description that HR sent us, and they were rejecting these candidates. The manager kept
The hiring
rejecting
manager's
candidates.
like, no.
Mm-hmm.
this is
Right,
not good.
right.
Yeah.
And eventually we just had to have an intervention and say, well, look, the qualifications here are amazing in terms of what you're asking for. And he looked at it and said, I don't want this. And what had happened was the job description was created when the position was created, but the technology the company used changed over time.
We didn't update it.
Didn't update it. And the other thing that happens is I don't think the managers have the time or take the time necessarily to read those things. They trust that HR is putting it together for legal appropriateness and what have you, but they're not necessarily, they're so busy and overwhelmed, it's not their typical job to read a job description and make certain it's what they want. When you get them to focus and say what's important, oftentimes you get great feedback. So,
Oh, yeah. What I love about Amy is she's spent half of her career in HR and half of her career being the business leader. And so, talk to us about your perspective on what's HR's role versus what the hiring manager's role is in finding talent.
I think the hiring manager is in charge of finding talent.
Right.
So, and this is something that's funny as, we work with a lot of smaller businesses that don't always have an HR resource, and now they do. And I feel like a lot of times I am still having to kind of teach companies how to utilize HR, and they look to HR for sometimes the wrong things. And I'm like, let me be clear. Everything I do is supported and guided, and I'm your advisor and I'm your consultant, right? I'm not here to deliver all the news. I'm not here to coach all the employees. People managers are responsible for the decision. So they've got to own all parts of that decision. HR helps, HR supports. We go out there. We go to the career fairs.
We'll
we
write your talking points.
We'll help you with the communication plan, and we'll do all of it. But ultimately, I think the hiring managers are responsible for having an always recruiting mindset, for utilizing their network. It's like if you're managing these kind of positions and you've been in these kind of positions before, you should have a network of people to also go talk to when you have an open position, right? Because I'm just going to post that job. That's not the same network that I have. My network is HR professionals, right? So that's where sometimes there can be a disconnect. But ultimately, in my business and in the company I worked with years, there was a strong partnership. It was a company that really utilized HR as a business partner. But the business owned all of those kind of things. When it had to do with their people, they owned those things. Yeah.
And the talent supply, another place where HR can help a lot, is sort of monitoring all the parameters in the hiring process. How long does it take from when you make a request or a requisition to when you're seeing
To fill the job,
resumes?
to hire.
From there, when are you making interview requests? From the interview, how long till it's scheduled? If you look at those breakdowns, you have to remember, in software development in particular, the average candidate that's coming to you already has 2 offers. And you don't have the time to take a look and say, well, we want to see 4 more resumes, give us a week. They're gone.
Yeah.
So by looking at those parameters and looking and saying, well, how long is it taking us to get from this stage to this stage to this age to when an offer is issued and then employment starts, finding ways to narrow that window, realistically narrow that window, is a big deal in trying to improve your chances for success. A lot of companies are doing it the old way and saying, they sacrifice the excellent in search of the perfect.
Yeah.
And you can't do that these days.
Well, I think going back to a little bit of what you said on companies sometimes are expecting the candidate to come to them with all of the certifications, all of the experience, all of the training. I actually work with a client of ours right now that is in the IT technology business, and they do such an incredible job about finding the right cultural fit and the right people. And they're such a specialized in what they do in the cloud services realm. They're like, we're going to have to teach them this anyways in the way we do it because we're the best in the business in this one piece of technology. we'll certify that. We'll get them the certification. We'll pay for them to go to the training with this specific, certification.
But they've invested in their own boot camp.
And they're like, let's find the right people, the right fits. It's, that they want to be part of the company and the culture and all the things we're trying to do. And they've got to have a lot of skills, but we can teach them the rest. And that's a really big thing because I don't always see that. And I think that makes them really unique.
Yeah, we live off that very mentality because, our office, our development center in Pittsburgh, when we're in Pittsburgh, we're competing against every big guy you can name in software development. I mean, Google's there, Uber's there, it goes on and on. The only way we can distinguish ourselves is we have to invest in the people. And we have to be prepared to train them over time. We're really proud of the training system we have in place that allows for people who are superstars to come in, prove themselves quickly, and go right into a billing position with a client versus maybe somebody who's the right fit, clearly is going to be a great part of the team, but is going to need 2 or 3 months to get up to speed. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's especially when you're smaller, you can't really afford to have that toxic personality show up.
Right.
They may test off the charts and everything you do, but they could destroy your culture and the attitude and do a lot more damage regardless of how well they do in the test.
Right.
So, the culture fit is so important, more particularly, I think, more so when you're smaller. Sometimes when you have 100 people in a room, you can hide 1 or 2 of those folks, but if there's only a dozen folks there, you can't afford it.
I'm curious, this is changing directions a little bit, Wayne, but I'm really curious on how being an employment attorney helps you now in your day-to-day management of people, and how often are you kind of pulling on all of those things in the way you kind of coach and deliver feedback?
I try and put the employer mentality first and turn off the lawyer brain because unfortunately, and I don't want that to come out wrong, but too often attorneys look for problems when what we focus on is looking for solutions. So instead of trying to find the potential problem, bring folks in, train them, make certain you're addressing things in advance, and don't be as worried about some of the smaller 1 in 1,000 problems. So I think just constantly reminding myself that there's a way to get to the solution here. There's a way to solve the problem. That is so important. That you won't be stopped. That you're going to be in some sort of relentless pursuit to solve the problem. That helps quite a bit.
Yeah.
You've now got your team spread across 2 offices. So you've been in Wilmington, North Carolina for a while, and then the Altoona, and then you've got some folks in Pittsburgh. Correct. So 3 offices, right?
Now Dallas as well too.
And Dallas, so 4 offices.
Oh, wow.
So how are you staying in tune with what your employees are thinking, any feedback that they have, and making sure that they're happy? Because it is really hard to find great developers right now, and it just sucks when you lose one and you got to replace them. So how are you making sure that you retain them?
So obviously communication is so important. With respect to what we focus on, it's making certain they're staying in touch with all of us all the time. That they feel they have access to us, they can bring problems to us. So we have regular one-on-ones, and we are, not to sound like a commercial, we're using Work Talk. I think it's really important in our industry because there is still a mentality with some developers where some of them are afraid to talk to people. To work with us, you really have to have pretty strong communication background. So we don't have too many heads down folks. But when you have those heads down folks, they're much more comfortable sort of typing out on a laptop or on a device telling you what their problems are. So you have to have as many tools in the toolbox to make certain that line of communication is constantly open. We also try and set up different levels for the communication, so everybody's going to have a a mentor developer, a team lead, and then direct
Like a
access to
technical
the
mentor?
technical mentor, team lead, and then access to management, whether it's through Joe, through myself, or through our operations manager. So multiple levels at multiple sort of professional skill sets.
What do the technical mentorships typically look like? Is there like a set time frame that people are paired up, or is it based on like a specific project or a technical deficiency or opportunity for an employee? Like, how do you work those technical mentorships?
Sure. We try and distinguish it in two different ways. We see sort of a professional development mentorship. So when somebody comes in to work with us, they're assigned to a technical team. It's not necessarily a project, but it's the person you rely on and the group you rely on to polish your skills, to get better, to get feedback, to do some in-house stand-ups, to learn about presentation skills. That isn't tied to any client, but that's time we devote through those teams for the professional sort of mentorship. Then when you're assigned to a client-based team, then that's more of a collaborative exercise where you're kicking ideas back and forth, reviewing each other's specific code for that client to make certain the client's needs are being met, that it's going to work right, that it ultimately gets to the place it needs to be. So there's two levels that we try and give them. One more sort of educational and one sort of addressing the specific needs of any given project.
I was just thinking about how I always kind of liken the guest situation to what Leath HR Group does. Like, we're billable HR consultants, right? You have billable developers. So how do you make sure that you avoid co-employment HR nightmares? Because sometimes your developers go on site, right? And they're employees of PS Solutions. Now, in your case, you're a consultant yourself. You're a 1099 person. So we got a whole crazy HR nightmare going down with like a three-way HR nightmare. But like, what do you, I mean, as an attorney too, like what, do you think about co-employment issues or?
Well, the way we've structured things for the most part anymore, everybody's our employee. Anyone working for we very, very, very rarely do 1099s. All of our developers are our employees, full-time employees with benefits. In terms of the ones that are on site, that becomes rarer and rarer, but even then there are employees working there. So the co-employment issues tend to be toward the client. And even then we're very careful and trying to be very specific in the contracts as to what our responsibilities are, and then fulfilling the responsibilities. I mean, making certain we're meeting with them regularly to see their performances, to give them feedback and evaluation.
Yeah. Just maintaining regular communication so they know who their technical boss actually is, right, is super important on that front. Did you ever have any co-employment issues?
No, I mean, I have one client now that I work with that is heavy on the contractor base, and it's a constant conversation, right? Like when we hire new people and we're adding a new role, it's like, should this be an employee role? Should this be a contractor role? Like, what does that look like? And so being really careful about like how we set that up to begin with. But it's a similar, kind of thing. At Nordstrom, no. I mean, not really. We had a decent amount of things that would happen from a strategy standpoint where we would hire, people like us, right, to come in and execute something. But it was very much known. Those were consultants, and there was certainly a level of understanding of what was expected when they were inside our business and adhering to our guidelines of just code of conduct, workplace, kind of things. But at the same time, those were very professional, high-level consultants coming in to do specific project work for us. But they would sometimes be with us for a year or two while executing, a complete technology change in the way we scheduled in our stores, right? And they had to train every store. So, I mean, that was a 24-month project. And it felt like they were our employees, but we all kind of knew they weren't. But no issues that I remember kind of running into from
Like,
it.
it might be because just there's not a lot of people who are unemployed right now. So using staffing agencies really isn't a common occurrence right now. It used to be like temp to perm was all the rage, even just like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of like, well, there's no one even available for temp. Like, why would I take a temp job if I could go get a permanent job right now?
Right.
But when and it will become a thing again, right? Temp agencies and staffing agencies will return. And when they do, it just is really important to make sure that you're delineating like who is the employer of record, because if you're hiring people from Adecco or Labor Finders or whatever, and somebody's being treated like an employee and coming to all the employee events and going to all the town halls and getting the company emails and, being treated truly like an employee, they just have a different colored badge. They could be eligible for, filing a complaint and collecting back benefits and wages and all that good stuff. So just the communication is super, super important. Just like if you have your employees on site somewhere else, just make sure, for God's sake, that you're talking to them more than they're talking to like their on site kind of contact at the client.
Yeah.
We made a decision to move away from sort of any sort of staffing model toward a solutions-based model. First of all, we enjoyed having our people on our team, and we didn't want to lose them. And then the other thing that came about was with the shortage, it didn't make any sense to work like crazy to find real talent and then have them disappear.
Go get scooped up.
Right.
So I think one of the smartest moves we've made is to be entirely solutions focused to the extent we possibly can. And
so if people need extra horsepower, and right now, let's face it, every single business, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, you're writing code somewhere in your business.
Sure.
It doesn't matter if it's retail or hospitality or construction or you are a software development company. Like, getting that extra horsepower, it doesn't matter how small the project is. PS Solutions is going to help you pick up the slack.
yeah, our way of doing that now is to recommend carving out a project.
Yeah.
And sort of it's a life raft to buy time. If you want your own people, certainly we understand that. It's hard for us to argue because we want our own people.
Right.
But the solution we can put for them is carve out the project, let us handle that project, while that buys you time to take the pressure off your people. Because if you're not doing that with this shortage, it can fall apart very quickly. If one or two people leave a 10-person team and you can't replace them, then you've got 8 people doing the job of 10, and they become a lot less happy. And then that 8's
Or you're not delivering
6.
on your technology roadmap,
Sure.
right? So you're falling behind. Maybe you get investors that are becoming unhappy. Your employees are getting burned out because you're understaffed. So it's a good solution.
Yeah, so it's a matter of sort of providing that temporary gap to allow people to breathe, take the time, find the folks they need, and put them on board.
I am obsessed with thinking about how do we get the next generation of folks interested in technology and specifically in software development now that I'm, on full-time with Vantaca. And I know you are too.
Yes.
So what are you doing? Like, what do you think the future of pipelining software developers looks like? It might not be that 4-year degree path, but what's your vision of, and how's Wayne and PS Solutions contributing to getting that next generation interested in development?
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, we look at non-traditional trainings, and we have great people that have 2-year degrees or boot camp degrees or self-taught. You have to be open to listen to those folks. But it's a matter of increasing the number of people going into the top of the funnel and sort of demystifying what these jobs are. There's a lot of intimidation that goes on trying to understand that there's some sort of secret magic when really it's some math, some logic, and some problem-solving skills. And one of the things we realized, both Joe and I have daughters that went down the path of computer science in college. And I remember Stephanie telling me in a senior class that she had 53 people in the class, and she was one of only 3 women. And
Wow.
Yeah, it's like it's less than 20% still of women.
And surprisingly, North Carolina does way better than the
That's
national
great.
average. I think
Yeah.
I saw the other day, They used to be 1, and now they're 2 in the nation in terms of percentage of women in STEM.
Who's one?
Truthfully, I don't even know who 1 is. I used to know that North Carolina was 1 at like 25% when the national average is 17.
Okay.
I saw the other day they were listed as 2, and I think the number was closer to 29%. So it's getting there. It's getting corrected, but there's still a long way to go. But in observing this phenomena that both Maureen and Raleigh and Steph had seen in school, we started studying the problem and trying to learn about it. We created a foundation designed to sort of encourage girls to look at these issues. It's amazing to me that when you look at math and science scores in high school, women are outperforming men all the time, and then they disappear then when they go into those STEM fields. I think there's so many factors that affect that,
right?
But it's a matter of sort of demystifying, in my view, what this is. I'm old enough, you two aren't, to remember the mystery of.
Nice.
I was like,
remember, I was a politician too.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but where if there was a female doctor, it was somebody like pointed at and whispered about how strange it was, and that was 25 years ago. And by and large, that's gone. That stigma disappeared, and that just needs to happen throughout the STEM fields to help there. The same issues, I think the demystification is even bigger with minorities. There's this strange fear about it that we have not, as an industry, done a very good job of explaining and demystifying to show this is actually a wealth of opportunity, that it's certainly a skill, but it is not a rare skill. It's just one that needs developed. So giving those opportunities and that early exposure to show that, hey, this is an opportunity out there, I think is crucial, and we need to do more of it.
Yeah.
So
you got to get in front of, you got to get in front of like the kids. You got to meet them where they are. A cool program that the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce is doing with New Hanover County Schools is a pilot program with 47th graders. They invited the parents and these 7th graders that applied and were selected for this pilot program to just be exposed to different jobs in the community where we record this podcast. And it's pretty cool. And the goal is over the next couple of years to take all 7th graders through this program. And so they can be exposed to software development, to banking, to manufacturing, to these other jobs that maybe like their parents never talked to them about, right? Because their parents really don't know like what you do as a software developer. They just assume you have to have a 4-year degree, and no one's told them any different. So, getting in front of kids when they're in middle school and things are starting to pique their interest, and they're starting to realize, hey, I am pretty good at math, or I am really great at English and writing and creative writing, and that's where I'd like to go. What could I do with that? And no one's ever talked to them about getting into communications or marketing or graphic design or whatever. So, your foundation's really cool, but like we definitely have to do a better job of getting in front of kids and their parents so that they're talking about it at home and encouraging them to go pursue something that seems foreign, like in the household. So,
yeah, let me tell a quick story about that.
Yeah.
When we had the foundation started back in 2012, we worked with Penn State Altoona, and they have summer camps for one, and one of them is coding. They had 3 sections of that coding camp the prior year with, I believe it was 15 kids in each camp, and they had 1 girl out of those 45 kids. We went to them with our foundation, said, give us 1 section. Say it's going to be the girls' camp. We will write the scholarships for everyone to attend that camp. Let's see how it goes. It filled up right away.
Awesome.
15 girls and great participation.
Do you think it made them feel more safe by having their own section dedicated to girls only? Like, why didn't they sign up in the first place? What's the psychology there?
I think that's exactly probably what it is. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot to be said. I mean, I'm someone who, went to an all-girls high school and, really believed in that kind of education. And it was a really positive thing, in the grades, the all-boys school and the all-girls school. I mean, we were well surpassing some of the public schools were all mixed together. And, yeah, you learn, you have a little bit more safety and you can speak up. And, they say the average age of like when girls kind of become quiet and fade into the background is like 9 or 10 years old, right? So, of course, like that psychology just continues, throughout life. So I'm sure that's a big part of. I
mean, as a girl dad, like, how did your girls do? Like being 3 out of 50 computer science students.
Steph did just fine. Actually, she became a major advocate for the solution, and still gets a lot of credit from Case Western, where she went to college. About increasing the number of women going into the STEM fields there. So she turned it into advocacy. And it's a little rare, but did quite well in dealing with that. Observing this on a number of occasions when we've seen it happen, there is an intimidation factor, but I don't want intimidation interpreted wrongly. It's not like somebody is engaging.
Right. It's not direct from an individual. It's more the environment.
It's the way somebody acts and the way somebody reacts to that. And if you get, I've seen situations where there was with a bunch of 5th graders where there was one boy put on a team. He was very smart and had things to say. And when he would speak up and take over, you could feel the rest of that group just sort of look at him and follow. So he wasn't doing anything inappropriate. He wasn't doing anything other than being himself. But it was intimidating to everybody else watching this guy perform. So it wasn't. You hear intimidation, sometimes that's misunderstood. Sometimes people are thinking you're bullying.
Right.
There's not necessarily any of that, but I think it's recognizing that possibly can be happening, and intervening and creating opportunities for the girls to shine under that environment,
especially in the formative years, like
Correct.
middle school.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just even think about Ellie, my 7-year-old. I forced her to go to golf camp a couple times this summer. She was like, golf? But that was the only camp that was open. And first, he did a great job. But the first week that she went, it was co-ed. And she said she had a little bit, she had some fun or whatever. And then the second week that she went, it was girls' golf camp. And she was jazzed every day. It was almost like she felt like she could get out of her shell and really try to hit that ball and wasn't embarrassed. And I guess maybe like some of the boys had been playing longer or something, and the girls were just kind of like trying it for the first time at First Tee Golf Camp. So it is interesting, just the psychology, and there's 7, and I noticed a difference between the week she went to co-ed and the week she went to girls golf camp. So I definitely think, Wayne and I are going to embark on this new tech collaborative in this community to try to fill the top of the funnel with young people that can become great hires down the line for lots of Wilmington tech companies, including PS Solutions and Vantaca. But that may be something that we want to think about too, is really trying to give opportunities to like specific groups of kids that just have historically been underrepresented, especially in this field.
And recognizing it's not necessarily a bad thing to have a group of girls together. I mean, it's not in any way trying to segregate them or discriminate either against them or for them. It's just recognizing that at certain stages in life, development takes place in different manners and at different times than between boys and girls. And between people learn differently. I think we all recognize that these days, but they also learn differently depending on where they are in life. Recognize that and give them the opportunity to maximize that chance to learn.
Well, I think when you remove some of the like also social dynamics and the pressure that comes from that, then they can really focus on that learning, right? It's really about building the skills in that, because they don't have to think about the rest of it and the dynamics between genders.
More girls for what's the name of your foundation? Girls Who Code?
No, it's PS Solutions Foundation.
Oh, okay.
It's not fancy.
Okay.
There's a Girls Who Code. Yeah, there's that all kinds of places, right?
You ready to have some fun?
Oh, sure, why not?
Okay.
Do we have a good former employment attorney one?
I don't
for
know.
it?
Yeah, I think so. Oh, yeah, we definitely do. So we get audience write-ins, which is really the best part about this. And so we, as HR experts, we talk through different scenarios, and then we love to get, you happen to be an HR expert too, so this is going to be good. We're going to put you on the spot and make you answer first.
You didn't ask what my hourly rate was. So.
I got some plastic sunglasses and a koozie for you. A slim can koozie. Just for you, Wayne.
Vantaca ping pong balls.
Yeah. I will throw you some Vantaca ping pong balls. Okay, so the first one is from somebody wrote in from Raleigh, and they say, I have 84 hours of sick pay on top of my PTO and holiday hours. I don't have the PTO time yet. I have to wait until month 4. So it's kind of interesting. They get their sick pay first. These hours do not roll over into next year. I would love to use my full benefits while I have them. Is it okay to use sick hours when I'm not actually sick as a PTO day? And Wayne's laughing. There's no way I'm going to be sick for 2 weeks this year. What do you guys think?
I'll let Wayne defer first. There's so many things in there.
Well, this is why I don't do this anymore.
He's like, I hate this.
Oh, I do. First of all, my question is, sick day is often rolled into PTO as an additional. So
that's what I was thinking.
That doesn't make an awful lot of sense to me. I can't think of too many companies that distinguish between sick days and PTO. So that's very unusual.
It's usually sick and vacation.
Well, there are certain states that require it, right? North Carolina is not one of them.
Right.
So make it all the same.
Yeah, just put it in a bucket.
And you get sick days immediately.
That's weird.
But then you got to wait 4 months for PTO. But then you expect people to not take the sick days.
Yeah. You're asking people to lie.
Yeah, I think you're just setting yourself up.
Yeah. So to me, that I have a tough time relating to the question. Clearly, you don't commit fraud. You don't make up a sickness. I mean, that gets you into trouble.
But sometimes I get asked okay, so what qualifies as a sick day? Do I have to be sick? Can I take that to take a doctor's appointment, right? Can I use a sick day to take a mental health day? I mean, these are things that are now starting to come up more and more. And I had the whole Northeast when I was a regional HR director for Nordstrom. So I had some states that required us to have sick days in addition to the PTO. Maryland was one of those states, right? And so, that was just something that states were doing because there's a lot of companies out there that weren't giving PTO to an hourly, and we're a high hourly population. So we had some of those. I mean, it was minimal, though. So I think what I always say is, if you're going to do that and you're going to build in some sick days as a company, okay, may not be the first thing I advise, but of course there are some states that require it. Make it 5. I don't know why you'd have 84 hours of sick time. That seems like a lot that you could be throwing those into PTO time.
And is the company trying to trick their employees? I'm going to give them a bunch of sick time, and then they're going to lie to me, and then I'm going to fire them. It just seems weird.
It sounds like a question where there's some miscommunication. Mm-hmm. So probably encouraging the person to revisit that with the employer.
Yeah, go talk to their supervisor. If you have an HR person or the owner of the company, go talk to them and be like, look, I know I don't get my, after 90 days, I start to get some of my PTO. I'd love to go to my grandma's birthday next Friday. Yeah. I really don't want to take a mental health day. I think honest.
It's the way we talk, communicate, and signal sick days too, and having people understand it's not necessarily an additional benefit, right? It's not meant to be there as PTO time. It's meant to be there so that you can be sick and you're not penalized by losing a day of pay. So no, that doesn't roll over, right? It's one of those, if you need it, it's there for you to utilize it. But if you don't need it and you're not sick for 10 days, then no, it's not an additional,
it's
right?
Kind of like bereavement.
So I think it's the way
or jury duty.
Exactly.
That's a good way to think about it.
It's just like jury duty. So it's the way we educate. I was dealing with this with
I'm not going to lie that my grandma died.
That the employee was leaving the company and we paid out PTO and they were challenging us on paying out their sick days. I'm like, that's not what sick days are. They're there and they're here for when you're here if you need them. so that you still earn your regular pay, because we don't want to penalize you for being sick, but it's not an additional, right? So that's what I think it's like companies just need to educate on what some of those things are. It's not an added benefit. It's there to make sure that you're getting your compensation and that you can actually call in sick if you're sick and not feel, because we have a lot of employees that come in sick because they can't afford to not get paid, right? So some of it is just, I think, the way it's communicated.
And I think a lot of what you're talking about there is how PTO came to life. That companies were tired of trying to make you prove you had a migraine or make you prove you had a cold.
Or that your kid was sick.
Or that somebody came in and infected the whole department because they were forced against it. So there had to be a way to sort of allow people some free means of getting off work when they should and can, without having to double check and worry about all that, by just building it in.
Right.
So, I think that, and that's why it's taken off so well. So
don't lie.
So
go
don't
talk to your
lie.
supervisor.
Ask some questions.
Hopefully they'll be human and say, you know what, this is kind of ridiculous. We should change our policy. And if you need help rewriting the policy, call Leath HR.
Understand that you don't have 12 sick days so that you can just like go do have extra days off, right? It's not extra days off. That's not what it is. Yeah.
All right. We mentioned bereavement. So this next question is about bereavement. So this person recently lost a parent, and the employer is only giving 4 days of time to handle everything. I need to put her house up for sale and work out all the arrangements and also grieve. I have a few days of PTO, which I'm planning to use. What if it takes me 2 or 3 weeks? I have a conversation with my manager and let her know the situation. She's only giving me 4 days to grieve. Do you have any advice?
Sorry for your loss, first of all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I've dealt with this myself. Part of what bereavement is to try and buy some time for a mental adjustment on a very traumatic event in all of our lives, and recognizing that it's not necessarily designed to allow for all of the estate issues that he or she is mentioning to take place. There are ways of dealing with that. So recognize that I think first bereavement is sort of mental health days. And then trying to encourage the employer to, provide some additional time if that is in fact necessary.
Even if it's unpaid, right?
Correct.
Like, can I have a leave of absence? I got to take 2 weeks to do all this stuff. I'd rather just knock it out so I can be back to work at 100%. I got to take this 2 weeks.
And that's why all these are hard. I mean, some people are going to deal with it better than others. Some 4 days is too much.
Yeah, I want to get back to work and get my
2
mind
days,
off.
or they need that 4 days to prepare for a funeral that's actually not going to happen for 4 months, right? Maybe it's overseas. I had a lot of that in our business, right? People who couldn't get home right away. I think with this one, what's hard is, while I have empathy for her and needing that time and understand that, yes, there are a lot of preparations that have to happen and the time to grieve, absolutely. But there is also a business you're talking about, and there's other employees as well. And it's hard. If you're a small business, I think maybe you've got some different flexibilities on policy, but kind of the bigger you get, you're like, gosh, you have thousands of employees now, and they're all going to have probably something like this that happens through the course of a year. And there does need to be some kind of consistency in the way we uphold policies and what we give to one and give to another. And so there's just a lot there to kind of think through. Because I don't know, as someone who ran the business, I probably couldn't have given everyone. I had 500 employees at one point in a store, and I probably couldn't have given everyone who suffered a loss 3 weeks off of work and still been able to run that business efficiently.
And the flip side of that, though, is even the small business.
Right, limited resources. Yeah,
So they can't afford someone to be out that long as well. So,
right.
It's really dependent on business conditions and like what's going on with the business. How busy are you? Maybe it's a lull time, and I can allow you to take some time away unpaid. I can't afford to pay you that entire time, but I can allow you to, we'll agree on some flexibility. And if you want to work half days or part time, maybe I could do that for 3 weeks while you handle some of the...
I think the message that we always give, and we would say as HR is, if you can work with someone, try your best to do that, right?
Yeah.
And try to have some understanding and have a little bit of flexibility if you are able to do that, right?
But also, this person needs to understand, well, this is a business and it's not kind of a humanitarian effort. And although you're going through something awful, the fact that they're offering some bereavement time is generous. So, be appreciative, but also just maybe let your supervisor know that you're willing to take some unpaid time if she's willing to give it.
And maybe it's fresh and new. And as you kind of have a little bit of time, you'll think through other solutions. What can you do on days off and in the
after
evenings?
hours?
And, Good.
All right.
This is fun.
Yeah.
You want to come back?
Solving problems. Giving advice. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here.
It's been fun.
Yeah. Awesome. HR nightmares, avoiding them, turning them into daydreams. So that's what we try to do.
Yeah. Well, you can find us on YouTube at HR Nightmares. Make sure to click that bell or that follow button so you're notified as new episodes air. And then find us over on Instagram at Leath HR. You can find us on TikTok, apparently.
Oh my gosh,
at
Gabby
Leath
is killing
HR.
it. There's one post with 15,000 likes.
Yeah.
And
so
400 some comments on it.
Go
It's
like
crazy.
us, follow us, connect with all of us on LinkedIn. And then, Wayne, do you want to plug your stuff? Do you guys want to plug Work Talk a little bit?
Absolutely. Go
We
for
can
it.
talk about it.
I'll do PS Solutions.
Yeah.
And, pssolutions.net is a website we're really proud of. In fact, Gabby worked with us as we were redesigning and rebuilding that and did a wonderful job. Savannah, who's running it now, is killing it with that. Our social media, we stay away from TikTok for some reason. Although after I'm hearing all this, and maybe next week, our focus is on LinkedIn.
Great.
And Facebook. So.
Good.
All right, find PS Solutions. And then, of course, there's Work Talk, which is it's kind of like a Leath HR group technology. Big evangelists of employee check-ins and making sure that your supervisors are communicating with their employees more frequently than most people are doing. Most of us just don't talk to our folks as often as we need to. And so go check out Work Talk. We're doing a 30-day free trial, worktalk.com, WORKTOK.com. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.